She betrayed me right at my birthday party, but I smiled, stood up, and made their entire lives collapse in just a few minutes. My name is Long, and I turned 30 this year. For most of my 20s, I thought I had everything figured out, a career I was proud of, a woman I loved for 6 years, and a best friend I'd trusted for more than a decade. I was the kind of man people called stable, reliable, predictable, even. But if there's anything life has taught me, it's that betrayal doesn't always come with a warning. Sometimes, it walks right through your front door, smiles at your dinner table, and pats you on the back like it's proud of the knife it's hiding behind. I loved Vi with every part of me. We met when I was 24. She was smart, kind, had the sort of laughter that made people pause in the middle of their sentences just to listen. Ours wasn't a fiery, unpredictable love. It was calm, like the rhythm of waves. We'd lived together for nearly 4 years, and although we hadn't married yet, it felt like we were already a family. Nam was my best friend from college. We shared a tiny, crumbling apartment in our early years, the kind with a leaky roof and a stove that only worked when you kicked it. We worked our way up through the grind together, from unpaid internships to decent jobs. We celebrated each other's wins, got drunk on heartbreaks, and swore we'd be the last two standing at each other's weddings. At least, that's what I believed. The first time I suspected something was off, it wasn't a gut punch. It was a whisper. Vi had started pulling away. Little things, fewer shared meals, more excuses to be out late, a sudden need for space. I asked if everything was okay. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said I was imagining things. Then one evening, I borrowed her laptop to send an email and found a photo buried in her downloads folder. It was a shot of her and Nam, taken at a quiet cafe I didn't recognize. They were holding hands. I stared at it for a full minute, hoping idiotically that it was a trick of the light. I didn't confront her. Not then. Instead, I became quiet, observant. I started noticing patterns. Vi and Nam meeting for quick coffee. Sudden changes in her schedule that lined up a little too neatly with his. The way both of them avoided eye contact whenever we were all in the same room. I needed proof. Real proof. So I started documenting. Dates, times, behaviors. I wasn't trying to be dramatic. I just needed to be sure. The final confirmation came not from Vi or Nam, but from the people I once called friends. One night, I was on a group Zoom call with our old college gang. I turned off my camera and mic for a moment and stepped away. When I came back, I didn't immediately announce my return. That's when I heard it. Laughter. Then someone said, "Man, Vi and Nam are getting bold. They better hope Long never figures it out." Another voice chimed in, "He's so clueless. Still planning to propose? Poor guy." They all laughed again. I ended the call without a word. That night, I sat in the dark, my fingers interlocked, my jaw clenched so tightly I thought it might crack. I wasn't just betrayed by two people. I was betrayed by a group, a chorus of silence and mockery. But I didn't lash out. I planned. My 30th birthday was approaching. I decided to throw a party, something grand. I rented out a rooftop restaurant in Da Nang, invited everyone, old friends, coworkers, even distant relatives. Vi was thrilled. She thought I was finally getting out of my shell. Nam texted me. "Can't wait to celebrate with you. Bro, been too long." I smiled. Replied, "Wouldn't be the same without you." The night arrived. I dressed sharp, greeted guests, took photos, laughed at jokes. Vi wore a wine-red dress, the same one she'd worn on our anniversary 2 years ago. Nam arrived late, as always, grinning like he owned the night. Dinner passed. Drinks flowed. And just as the cake was being wheeled out, Nam stood up and clinked his glass. "Before we cut the cake," he said, "I'd like to steal the spotlight for a moment." I knew what was coming. He pulled out a small velvet box, turned to Vi, and dropped to one knee. Gasps. Applause. Vi looked stunned, then teared up, nodded, and embraced him. Our guests were ecstatic. I stood and clapped, too. "Beautiful," I said. "Really? But if I may." Everyone turned to look. I have a little surprise, too. A video montage. Memories from the past few years. Just a little thank you to everyone here. I nodded at the AV guy. The lights dimmed. The screen lit up. The first clip was innocent, photos of me and Vi through the years. Smiles. Travels. Birthdays. Then came the grainy of footage. A hotel lobby. Nam and Vi entering, hand in hand. A different angle, kissing in an elevator. Dates and timestamps in the corner. Gasps turned into stunned silence. Someone dropped a glass. Then came the audio recordings from that Zoom call. The laughter. The jokes. My name. When the lights came back on, Vi was pale. Nam's mouth opened, but no words came out. I looked at them. "Happy birthday to me," I said. Then I walked out. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind of silence that screams in your ears, the kind that wraps itself around your chest and makes it hard to breathe. I didn't play music. I didn't roll down the window. I just drove, headlights cutting through the humid Da Nang night. My hands steady on the wheel even though my heart felt like it had been detonated. When I reached home, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even sit down. I walked straight to the bedroom, opened Vi's side of the wardrobe, and began packing her things into boxes. One by one, her dresses disappeared from the hangers. Her makeup, her books, her notebooks filled with tiny handwriting. I didn't stop. I didn't pause. It was as if I was clearing out a museum, careful not to disturb the past, just quietly erasing it from the present. By the time the sun began to rise, her presence in the apartment was almost entirely gone. All that was left was the faint scent of her shampoo on the pillow and the silence of a space now echoing with absence. The messages started pouring in around noon. "Vi, Long, please. We need to talk." "Nam, bro, what the hell did you do? You ruined everything." "Another friend. Man, that was brutal." I don't know what to say. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I turned off my phone, lay down on the bare mattress, and stared at the ceiling. I wasn't proud. I wasn't satisfied. I was just tired. That night, my parents showed up. I didn't tell them anything. I didn't need to. Somehow they knew. Maybe they saw it in my face. Maybe someone called. But they brought me food, stayed until I ate something, and quietly cleaned up the mess I hadn't noticed. They didn't ask questions. They didn't give advice. They just stayed. And that, more than anything, reminded me of the kind of love I had once believed in, the kind that didn't break, didn't sneak around, didn't betray. The next few days passed in a haze. I went back to work, but everything felt dull. My students noticed. One of them left a sticky note on my desk that read, "Whatever it is, you'll get through it." It made me tear up. On the 5th day, I finally checked my messages. There were dozens, but one stood out. It was from one of the quieter members of our college group, Mai. She wrote, "I didn't know about Vi and Nam. I swear. But I should have said something when I saw how weird they were acting months ago. I'm sorry. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." I didn't reply, but I didn't delete it either. The next week, Vi showed up. I was watering the small plant on the balcony when I heard a knock. I froze. She knocked again. I opened the door slowly. She stood there, in a pale blouse and jeans, her eyes red, her hair messy, like she hadn't slept in days. "I just came for my things," she said quietly. I stepped aside. She walked in like a stranger. Hesitant, cautious. Her eyes moved around the apartment like she didn't recognize it anymore. Maybe she didn't. Maybe in my absence, I'd stripped away the version of it that once held her. I handed her the boxes. She stood by the door holding them for a long time. "Do you hate me?" she asked. I didn't answer. "I didn't plan any of this," she whispered. "It just happened." I was confused. I didn't know who I was anymore. Still, I said nothing. Her voice cracked. "I loved you. A part of me still does." I looked her in the eye. "No," I said. "You loved the life I gave you. But you didn't love me enough to protect it." She nodded, lips trembling. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and walked out. I closed the door and locked it. Then I sat down at the dining table, in the same seat I had always used. And for the first time since the party, I exhaled. Not in relief, not in sadness. Just to let go. The following weeks felt like stepping into a strange new world, familiar in form, unfamiliar in feeling. I returned to my daily routines, but everything felt distant. The streets I used to stroll with Vi, the cafe where Nam and I used to sit for hours. Even my own apartment, though cleaner and quieter, felt like it belonged to someone else. I started going to the gym again, not to bulk up or change anything, but to move, to feel alive. The sound of my breath, the ache in my muscles, the rhythm of footsteps on the treadmill, they grounded me. They reminded me that my body, at least, was still mine. One morning after a workout, I sat alone on a bench overlooking the Han River. The sky was soft, the water calm. For a moment, I felt something close to peace. That was when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mai, the same friend who had messaged me earlier to say she was sorry. "Want to grab a coffee sometime?" No drama, just a check-in. I hesitated, then typed back, "Sure. Tomorrow?" We met at a small bookstore cafe. Mai arrived with no makeup, a simple white tee, and a tote bag filled with books. We talked about random things. Her work as a copy editor, a fantasy novel she'd been reading, the weather, nothing about the incident. It was exactly what I needed. At the end of the conversation, she said, "I just want you to know, not everyone in our group knew. Some of us just sensed things, but we weren't sure. I should have asked. I should have warned you." I nodded. "It's not your burden to carry. I've made peace with it." And in that moment, I realized I was beginning to make peace. A few days later, my neighbor Mrs. Hung knocked on my door. She was in her 60s, lived alone, and often sent me food when I was too busy to cook. She handed me a bowl of hot rice porridge and said, "You've looked lonely these days. Eat. It's good for your heart." I smiled. "Thank you. I'm getting better." She patted my shoulder. "Good. Don't let darkness stay too long in a warm house." I didn't expect wisdom to come in the form of porridge and old lady proverbs, but it stayed with me. I began journaling again. Each night, I wrote one paragraph. No pressure, just one. Today, I didn't think of them. Not once. Today, I laughed while watching a stupid video. It felt real. Today, I cooked for myself. Didn't mess it up. Tiny victories. And slowly, they added up. Then came Lynn. I met her at a friend's book launch. She wasn't flashy. She didn't dominate the room. But when she spoke, everyone listened. Her voice was soft, but her words were deliberate. We stood next to each other at the refreshment table. I commented on the lack of decent tea. She laughed. We started talking. About books, obviously. About travel. About quiet cafes. She had this way of tilting her head when she listened, like she was truly absorbing what you said, not just waiting for her turn to speak. By the end of the night, she gave me her number without hesitation. "Only if you plan on texting me about terrible tea," she teased. I did. That same night. One message turned into two. Then coffee. Then long walks. I told her, in vague terms, that I had come out of a long, difficult relationship. She didn't pry. She simply said, "I'm not in a rush. We can just be." And for the first time, I felt like I didn't need to explain myself to be understood. It had been nearly 4 months since that night. The night I lit the fuse and walked away. Lynn and I were slowly learning each other's rhythms. We weren't in love, not yet. But we were steady, comfortable. On Saturday mornings, we visited the farmer's market and bought too many oranges. On weeknights, we read books on opposite ends of the couch and shared quiet smiles instead of noise. It was healing. It was human. Then the past knocked. It came in the form of an email from Nam. Short. To the point. Subject, just one conversation. Long. I know I don't deserve it. But if you can spare half an hour, I'd really appreciate the chance to talk. No drama. Just closure. Nam. I stared at the screen for a long time. I hadn't thought about him in weeks. I thought I was past it. But the moment I saw his name, something twisted in my stomach. My hands tensed. My jaw locked. Lynn noticed. "You okay?" I minimized the email. "Yeah, just work stuff." That night, I didn't sleep. By morning, I had decided. I replied. 1 hour. At the old football field. Wednesday. Noon. The day came. I arrived early, sitting on the same bleachers where we once shouted ourselves hoarse over college games. The field was empty, the sky overcast. When Nam arrived, he looked thinner, older. He walked with hesitant steps, as if every footfall might trigger something buried. He sat 2 benches away. "Thanks for coming," he said. I said nothing. He ran a hand through his hair, nervous. I need to say sorry. And not just for what happened between me and Vi, but for betraying our friendship. For letting something selfish ruin something good. Still, I said nothing. He swallowed. I lost everything. My job. My family. Even Vi left. Said she couldn't look at me without thinking about what we did. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just, I don't know. For you to know I regret it. I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time without anger, without the fog of betrayal. He wasn't the confident best friend I once knew. He was a man living in the ruins of his own choices. "I don't hate you," I said slowly. "I don't think about you much at all anymore. And that's how I know I've moved on." He nodded, eyes downcast. I stood. "I hope you find a way to live with what you've done." "I already have." Then I walked away. That night, I told Lynn everything. All of it. From the first suspicion to the video at the party to the silence that followed. She listened. No interruptions. No judgment. When I finished, she took my hand. "Thank you for trusting me with that," she said. "You didn't deserve any of it. But you came out stronger." I breathed, a long, slow breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. For the first time, the past felt truly behind me. There's something rare about building a relationship without the need to prove anything. With Lynn, I didn't feel the pressure to impress, to perform, or to mask my pain with borrowed confidence. She met me where I was, wounded but healing, guarded yet willing. Our connection didn't come in fireworks. It came in small, consistent warmth. She remembered how I took my coffee. I remembered the books that made her cry. We never rushed. Some weekends we barely left the apartment. Other times, we wandered aimlessly along the riverside, making up stories about strangers passing by. One afternoon, we got caught in the rain. We ducked under a bus stop, soaking wet, laughing like we were kids. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and said, "You don't smile like someone who's pretending anymore." I didn't realize until that moment that I hadn't been pretending. Somewhere along the way, I had started living again. We weren't perfect. I still had nights when memories returned uninvited. When a scent or song dragged me back to that hotel lobby, that elevator, that final betrayal. Lynn never asked me to erase the past. She simply stayed present. Sometimes that was enough. When I finally told my parents about her, they were hesitant. Protective, maybe. But after meeting her, after watching how she folded herself gently into my life, they smiled. "She's not loud," my mom said, "but she carries light." I nodded. That was Lynn. She didn't demand space, she offered it. One evening, months into our relationship, Lynn and I sat on the rooftop of her apartment. She brought out 2 cups of tea, wrapped in mismatched ceramic. The sky above us was painted in fading orange and bruised purple. "I know you said you're not ready," she began, "and that's okay. I just want you to know I'm not here waiting for the next version of you. I already like this one." I reached for her hand. "I may never love like I did before," I said, "but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe what I thought was love back then was just holding on to comfort." She smiled. "Then let's build something uncomfortable and honest instead." So we did. We built a love that didn't need loud declarations. One that lived in silent car rides, in grocery lists, in shared playlists, in small apologies after long days. A love that didn't ask me to forget who I'd been, but helped me become someone better. Autumn returned with quiet wind and golden leaves sweeping across the sidewalks like wandering thoughts. Life had found a rhythm again, and for the first time in years, I welcomed the change in seasons with anticipation rather than melancholy. One Saturday morning, as Lynn and I browsed a weekend market, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number, but something in my gut stirred. I answered. "Long?" the voice asked. Soft. Unsure. "Yes. It's Vi." I froze. She continued, "I'm not calling to reopen anything. I found something of yours. It's a journal. I think I took it by accident when I packed my things. I thought maybe you'd want it back." I took a breath. "All right. You can leave it with the security at my building. I'd rather give it to you in person. Just a minute. Please." I looked at Lynn. She wasn't listening in, but she sensed something had shifted. I mouthed, "Vi." Lynn simply nodded. Later that afternoon, I met Vi at a cafe tucked between a flower shop and a bookstore, neutral ground. She looked different. Not sad, not radiant. Just older. Like someone who lived through the storm and accepted the wreckage. She handed me the journal, wrapped in brown paper. "It's from your second year of teaching," she said. I read a few pages. I shouldn't have, but I did. I placed it in my bag without comment. She looked at me. "You look good. Lighter." "I feel lighter." There was silence. "I'm not here to apologize again," she said. "You gave me that chance already. I just wanted to say thank you. For not turning into someone bitter. For letting me go without burning me down." I smiled. "Some things aren't worth carrying forever. You taught me that." She looked down at her hands. "Are you happy?" "Yes." She nodded. "I'm trying. Still figuring things out." We parted without ceremony. No hugs. No promises to stay in touch. Just a shared, quiet understanding that some chapters don't need revisiting. They simply need closing. That night, I opened the journal. My own words stared back at me, filled with hope, ambition, and naive dreams. But I didn't feel shame. I didn't feel regret. I felt proud. Proud that I had once believed in something. And prouder still that I had learned to believe again, differently, wiser. I sat on the balcony with Lynn, the journal in my lap. "Old memories?" she asked. "Old me," I said. He had a lot to learn. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Good thing he did. And with the wind rustling through the bougainvillea across the street, I realized the past didn't own me anymore. I had walked through fire, not to burn, but to forge. And I was whole.